They said I'd always need them, so I let them panic. They said I'd always need them. That without their guidance, their help, their constant suffocating intervention, I would be completely and utterly lost. A ship without a rudder, a story without a plot. They painted a picture of me as fragile, incapable, and perpetually in need of rescue. So I decided to test that theory. I didn't argue, I didn't raise my voice. I simply let them panic. This is the story of how I won my freedom, reclaimed my own mind, and proved them wrong without saying a single word. For as long as I can remember, my family's love felt a lot like being smothered. It wasn't the loud, aggressive kind of control that leaves visible bruises. It was worse. It was the soft, sneaky kind, all wrapped up in the language of care and what's best for you. It was a gilded cage, comfortable and beautifully decorated, but a cage nonetheless. "Oh, don't you worry your pretty little head about that," my mother would say, her voice a soothing melody as she plucked a bill right out of my hand. "We'll handle the finances. It's just so complicated and you have so much else on your plate." She wasn't just paying a bill. She was reinforcing the narrative that I was financially illiterate, that numbers were a mystical language only she and my father could decipher. Any attempt I made to learn was met with a dismissive wave. "It's all taken care of, sweetheart. It's our job to worry about these things." My older brother, their appointed enforcer, was just the same, but his brand of help was more physical. "You're not a great driver, let me just take you," he'd insist, dangling his car keys like a prize. This wasn't just for long trips. This was for a 5-minute drive to the corner store, a trip to the gym, a visit to a friend's house. Every time I got behind the wheel, he'd find a reason to critique my parking, my speed, my choice of route. "It's safer this way," he'd conclude, and the unspoken part was always, safer from your own incompetence. My life was just one gentle takeover after another. They'd schedule my dentist appointments because they knew my schedule better than I did, which was their way of saying my time wasn't really my own. They'd help with my job applications by rewriting my cover letters, subtly nudging me toward jobs they thought were appropriate. Usually something stable, local, and completely unthreatening. A role that would keep me physically close and professionally dependent. When I once showed interest in a creative field, they collectively sighed with concern, talking about instability and the lack of a clear career path, until my own excitement felt foolish and naive. Every single decision, from the car I should buy, something sensible, pre-approved by my father, to what I should have for dinner, "We're making lasagna, you love lasagna," which was a statement, not a question, became a group discussion where my vote was just a suggestion, easily overruled for my own good. Their family motto, and I heard it so often it became a dull ringing in my ears, was, "You'd be lost without us." They didn't say it with malice. They said it with this smug, self-satisfied certainty that was way more infuriating. They'd built this whole story where I was the helpless main character, the damsel perpetually tied to the train tracks of life, and they were the heroes, a family of saviors always swooping in to save me from myself. And for years the most insidious part is that a part of me believed them. Their constant help wasn't just managing my life. It was a masterclass in slowly chipping away at my confidence. Every time they stepped in, it just hammered home the idea that I was incapable. I started second-guessing every move I made. I'd stand in a grocery store, paralyzed over which brand of pasta to buy, wondering what they would choose. I'd rehearse simple phone calls in my head, terrified of saying the wrong thing without their guidance. Their voices became my inner monologue, a chorus of doubt. The cage was comfortable, I'll give them that. I never had to worry about late fees, confusing paperwork, or the stress of navigating complex adult responsibilities. But that comfort was a sedative. It was still a cage, and through the slowly lifting fog of their influence, I was finally starting to see the bars. The breaking point wasn't some big dramatic explosion. It wasn't a screaming match in the living room. It was a quiet, soul-crushing Tuesday that felt like any other, but ended with a profound and irreversible shift inside of me. I'd been working my tail off for a promotion at my job. It wasn't just a step up, it was a step out. The role involved managing a new regional project, which meant travel. Real travel. It meant flights, hotels, navigating new cities, and leading a team on my own terms. It was the first thing in years that I had wanted entirely for myself, untainted by their opinions or suggestions. I prepped for weeks, spending my evenings and weekends poring over market data, building a detailed proposal, and practicing my presentation until the words felt like they were my own. My boss was genuinely impressed. I saw it in his eyes during our meetings. He wasn't just placating me, he was engaging with my ideas. For the first time I felt this bright, sharp spark of real, unassisted pride. The final interview was a formality he'd hinted. It was set for that Friday. I felt like I was on the edge of a new life. Then on Tuesday evening my father sat me down in the living room. "I had a chat with your boss," he said, stirring his coffee with the casual air of someone discussing the weather. My blood ran cold. He didn't look up. Just a friendly word. "I know his brother-in-law, we play golf sometimes. I told him you're a dedicated worker, a real asset to the company, but that all that travel might be a bit too much for you to handle right now. The stress, the logistics, it's a lot. I suggested they think about you for a different role, one with more stability here at home. Something to let you grow without getting overwhelmed." He looked up at me and was beaming like he'd just handed me the keys to a kingdom he had built for me. He genuinely thought he'd done a good thing. He saw my ambition not as a strength, but as a problem he needed to solve, a risk he had to neutralize for my own protection. He couldn't stand the idea of me succeeding on a stage he couldn't see, couldn't manage, couldn't control. My boss called the next day. His voice was different, distant, formal. The travel role, he explained, had been re-evaluated. They decided to go with a candidate who had more logistical experience. He'd keep me in mind for something else. That little spark I'd felt just days before? It was extinguished. Stamped out. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even tremble. I just looked at my father later that evening, so proud of his meddling, so content in his role as my protector, and in that moment, everything became crystal clear. They didn't want me to be safe. They wanted me to be dependent. Their help wasn't a safety net. It was an anchor, and it was chained to my ankle. And I realized then and there I would never win by arguing with them. You can't reason with people whose entire worldview depends on you being wrong. The only way to win was to prove them wrong silently and completely. The game had to change, and I was about to rewrite the rules. My plan was devastatingly simple. I'd become a ghost in my own life. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't write a dramatic letter. I didn't make a declaration of independence. I just stopped. I stopped engaging. I stopped explaining. I stopped giving them the fuel of information they needed to run my life. The next morning the usual routine kicked off. "I laid out your blue shirt for you, it looks better for your Wednesday meetings," my mother called out from the hallway. I walked out of my room wearing a black one. No thank you, no argument. I just grabbed my keys, picked up my coffee and left for work. The silence had begun. The questions started that evening. "Did you remember to call the insurance company about that rate increase?" my brother asked, already reaching for his phone to do it for me, the hero ready to swoop in. "It's handled," I said, not looking up from my book. His hand paused. His brow furrowed. "What do you mean, it's handled? What did they say? Did you get the reference number?" he pushed, trying to find a crack in my composure. "It's handled," I repeated, turning a page. Calm as a frozen lake. Those two words became my shield and my sword. The next few weeks were a masterclass in quiet defiance. "We need to sit down and do your taxes this weekend. It's that time of year again. It's handled. Your car's making that noise again, let me call my guy. I'll take it in for you on Saturday. It's scheduled with a new mechanic. Don't forget you have that family dinner with the cousins on Saturday. I have other plans." What plans? Plans. I was a black hole of information. I gave them no details, no drama, no explanations, and most importantly, no openings for them to help. Every evening I'd come home from work, make myself a simple dinner and retreat to my room. I wasn't rude. I wasn't aggressive. I was just a pleasant, smiling, unmovable brick wall. Meanwhile, behind my closed bedroom door, I was living a frantic, secret second life. I was glued to my laptop, a student in the University of Google and YouTube. I was teaching myself how to create a budget spreadsheet, my heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and excitement. I watched hours of tutorials on basic car maintenance, learning the difference between a dipstick and a tire iron. I spent my lunch breaks researching apartments across town, comparing lease terms and utility costs. I secretly opened my own bank account online, a simple act that felt like a revolution. I set up a direct deposit for a portion of my paycheck, a secret fund for my freedom. I applied for and got a credit card in my own name, the plastic feeling impossibly heavy and significant in my hand. Step by step, brick by brick, I was building my own life in the shadows of the one they thought they still controlled. They saw a daughter who was being quiet and moody. In reality, I was a prisoner of war, silently digging an escape tunnel with a teaspoon. Their first reaction was confusion, which quickly curdled into irritation. My quiet competence was a wrench in their well-oiled machine of codependence. My refusal to be helped wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a deep, personal insult. It was a rejection of their very identity as the family saviors. "I just don't understand this new attitude," my mother would say, her voice tight with a frustration she was trying to disguise as concern. "We're just trying to help you. Why are you being so difficult?" To them, my independence was difficult. My self-sufficiency was an attitude. My silence was an act of aggression. Then when irritation didn't work, they moved on to manufactured crises. This was their last desperate play to force me back into the damsel in distress role they needed me to play. One week, the internet, which was in my father's name, was suddenly shut off for non-payment. He came to me with a deeply sympathetic look, a performance worthy of an award. "Oh dear, looks like I forgot to pay the bill. You must be in a complete panic with your work deadlines. Don't you worry, I'll call them right now and sort it out for you." He was poised, waiting for me to crumble and say, "Oh, thank you, Dad. What would I do without you?" "Dad," I just shrugged. "No need. I signed up for my own service last week. The technician is coming tomorrow morning to install it." The look on his face was a masterpiece of stunned disbelief. It was the face of a puppet master who just discovered his favorite puppet had found a pair of scissors and cut its own strings. He had no power. That's when the simple irritation morphed into genuine panic. They started talking in hushed tones whenever I entered a room, the conversation instantly ceasing. They'd try to bait me into arguments, poking at old insecurities, trying to get any kind of emotional reaction out of me. "You seem tired," my mother would say. "Are you sure you're eating enough? You look thin." My brother would try a different angle. "Heard from Sarah lately? He was asking about you." I told her you've been a bit off. They needed to know what was going on in my head. My silence was a void they were trying to fill with their own anxieties, and it was driving them crazy. They had spent my entire life telling me I couldn't survive without them, but as I calmly handled every challenge they either observed or secretly created, it was becoming terrifyingly clear that the opposite was true. Their entire sense of purpose, their family dynamic, was built on me being helpless. And I wasn't helpless anymore. Before I tell you how this all finally came to a head, I have to ask, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments what your breaking point would have been. And if you're finding this story as satisfying as I did, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because the moment they finally understood the truth is worth sticking around for. The endgame came about a month into my silent rebellion. It was a Friday. I had just picked up the keys to my new apartment. Holding them in my hand, I felt a tremor of pure, unadulterated freedom. Over the past few weeks, I had been moving things in small, clandestine trips. A box of books here, a new set of dishes there, a bag of clothes. My new place was slowly becoming a home while my old room was becoming a shell. I came back to the house that evening for my last few boxes of personal belongings. As soon as I walked in, I knew. The air was thick with tension. The entire family was waiting for me in the living room, arranged like a tribunal. It was an intervention. "We need to talk," my father said, his voice trembling with a potent cocktail of anger and fear. "We don't know who you are anymore. You've been sneaking around, lying to us, shutting us out. After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us? What is going on?" My mother chimed in, her voice pleading. "We're your family. We love you. Why won't you let us in? We just want to help you." For the first time in a month, I dropped the "it's handled" defense. I stood before them and I looked at each of them in turn. My father, the master planner. My mother, the gentle enabler. My brother, the dutiful enforcer. And I spoke with a calm I had never known I possessed. "You're right," I began, my voice even and clear. "You don't know who I am. You never did. You knew the person you wanted me to be. The person you needed me to be. The person who would be lost without you." I paused, letting that hang in the air, letting them really hear it. For the last month, I've been living my own life. I got my own bank account and built a budget. I've been paying my own bills on time. I found a mechanic who doesn't talk down to me, and I learned how to check my own oil. I taught myself how to understand a lease. I did it all without your help. Not because I wanted to hurt you, but because I had to prove to myself that I could. Then I delivered the final quiet blow. You said I'd always need you, I said, my voice perfectly steady, holding my new keys up just enough for the light to catch them. You were wrong. I signed a lease on a new apartment. I'm moving out. Tonight. Silence. Complete deafening silence. The panic on their faces was gone, replaced by a hollow, profound shock. It wasn't that I was leaving that stunned them. It was how I did it. I hadn't asked for permission. I hadn't asked for help moving. I hadn't needed a cosigner for the lease or a loan for the deposit. I had pulled off a flawless escape right under their noses, using the very incompetence they projected onto me as the perfect camouflage. They were so busy watching for me to stumble that they never saw me run. I had won. Not by yelling or fighting, but by quietly refusing to play their game anymore. I turned, picked up my last box of belongings, walked to the front door, and for the first time in my life I closed it behind me, knowing I was the only one who held the key. That first night in my own apartment, the silence was different. It wasn't the tense, weaponized silence from my family's home. It was peaceful. It was the sound of freedom. It was the hum of a refrigerator that I had bought. It was the absence of footsteps outside my door, of voices just checking in. It was the sound of my own thoughts, clear and uninterrupted for the first time. This story isn't really about revenge. It's about taking back your own narrative. They wrote a story for me where I was a helpless side character, and I decided to become the author of my own. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to go silent and let people show you who they really are when they can't control you anymore. Their panic revealed the truth. They thought I needed them, but it turns out they were the ones who desperately needed me to be helpless. Their sense of purpose was tied to my perceived weakness. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to pull off a silent rebellion to get your independence back? Share your stories in the comments below. I read as many as I can, and your experiences give strength to so many other people who might be feeling trapped in their own gilded cage. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories of quiet rebellion and sweet, sweet justice. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this story and tell us where you are watching from. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most powerful.